Are there any magic spells that you should ban from your game? And if so, why? Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and we are looking at spells that you should perhaps ban from your game if you haven't paid them very much attention. Now, what kind of game am I talking about? Any game that involves magic. So this could be Star Wars, Star Trek, fantasy, urban arcana, vampire game. The list is endless. If there is a magic spell in the game, then you need to seriously consider the following things. Because if you actually think about them and how they apply to your world, they can be game-changingly breaking. They can just be bad. So let's have a look at it. This may involve some small ranting. Communication and travel. I lump them together because they kind of are linked together. Restoration and bringing back the dead. And then finally we have metagame spells. Spells that cause mechanical effects that have nothing to do with actually anything in the game, but are outside of the game, changing the mechanics of the game. Apparently the designers thought it was a cool idea. They were wrong. In a game where you have the speed of communication as a magic spell. So let's say, for example, you have the ability to telepathically communicate with anybody on the planet or within the galaxy. Communication is the key to ruling your country or your dominion. The size of your empire was based on how fast communication could extend from one point to another. How much control could you exert over those that were far away, and how quick could you exert that control? Little outlying nations that were under control suddenly flipped and rebelled, and the capital didn't know about it because the communication took so long to get back to them, and then the decision to change stuff, and then the transportation took so long that years could pass before any actual actioning took place. So if you have a magic spell in your world or in your game system that allows for instantaneous communication, you need to realize that empires will be bigger. I can control a lot more space if I can find out exactly what's happening in real time, and I can communicate in real time with multiple characters on those different locations, in those different locations. But there are deeper implications as well. Today, if you commit a crime in London and you flee to New York, the police officers in New York will be able to get all of your data, as well as all of the video footage and the photographic footage of you almost instantly. They literally just have to follow some bureaucratic red tape and boom. Run back 200 years and all of a sudden that information would take weeks potentially to arrive in the US if it was even sent in the first place, because it took weeks to request it. This was the speed of mail on a ship. Player characters commit a crime in one city, they fly on griffins to another continent. If there is instantaneous communication, that other continent will know about it and could potentially know about it. Now, I'm not saying that you should suddenly cut out all kinds of magical communication. All I'm saying is that you need to think about how your empire is using that communication. If they're still relying on the speed of a horse or a griffin, why? Why are they doing that? What are the reasons for it? Is it just too expensive? But honestly, how expensive, what kind of expense are you willing to incur at the expense of information? Now, with travel being hand in hand with the communication, once you start to travel faster and faster and faster, life gets easier and easier and easier, as does the response time of sending out mercenaries, sending out guards, sending out bounty hunters, bringing people back. Delivering adventures, suddenly those become a little bit moot. We need you to go to the highest peak in the furthest land. All right, I created a teleportation circle and I'm at the top of the mountain. Thank you very much. Well, that was that adventure done. Great. Can you get back? Yep, teleportation circle. And I'm back. Do you see how it becomes problematic? So again, the question is asked, why is your empire, why is your nation not utilizing the fastest means of transportation? You can come up with all kinds of solutions. Oh, it's just too taxing, it's too expensive. What is the expense of time versus instantaneous? Interesting. Interesting. As a species, we are aiming to get faster at everything. All right, let's move away from communication and from transportation, because there are some headache-inducing issues that you need to think about there. Let's move on to the biggest bugbear that I have: resurrection. The player characters can be brought back from the dead by a suitably powerful individual who's got the necessary spells and abilities, and body parts depending on the spell that you're using. Nice idea, except the king has been assassinated. Oh, well, was he literally vaporized in the last 100 years? Oh no, not a problem, we'll bring him back. Why would you ever have a change in governorship? Why would you have these? What's your assassin going to do? Oh, I've drugged the king, so he's asleep for 100 years. That would be more effective than killing the king if there weren't spells that would just remove, poisons and that sort of thing. Resurrection spells are very, very problematic. And oftentimes it's like, oh, well, they're so expensive. Not for anybody who's got any money, they're not. If you presented this planet Earth with the ability to bring back people from the dead, it doesn't matter if it cost $1,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, it would be done on a massive scale. There really is no reason why it shouldn't be. So some systems, which I've noticed, and I think this is a great idea, are a soul for soul. Okay, you want to bring back the king. Great stuff. You need a voluntary soul to take his place. This keeps the scales of heaven and hell balanced, you see. So resurrection spells really create much more problems than they kind of solve, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of bringing back the dead, at least in a way in which they have absolutely no consequences for having died. Finally, we move on to the meta game spells. These are spells that cause you as the DM to have to re-roll your dice or to reconsider your option, or dice that get rolled and then suddenly the players get to add things into the situation that were not there beforehand. There are many role-playing systems that exist with that exact mechanic built in. They're like, no, it's so cool, the players can add in stuff and you can add more things to it. And you're going, okay, so the scenario that the GM has built is completely scuppered because of the dice, which allow the player to have some kind of agency in the setup. So why am I bothering to do a setup in the first place? Let's everybody play, and then we don't need a GM, right? Anyway, maybe I'm old school, I don't know. But for me, if I'm the GM, this is my scenario. I am giving you the things that you need to be able to run this game. You might not have seen them, you might have missed them. So when a die suddenly says, oh, actually, I hate those kinds of things. I also hate things which are like, oh, GM, you've rolled a this. No, I'm using this power to cause you to re-roll. Oh, because the monster is distracted by lights. Okay, so rules, spells particularly, that affect the game itself, the metagame. Not a huge fan at all. Now, if you have spells like this in your campaign and you're sitting there going, oh yeah, the assassination of the king wasn't that tragic because it's just been brought back to life. If that starts to create problems for you narratively, what can you do? You can hit that like button or the subscribe button because that would really help the channel. Alternatively, you can ban these spells and just remove them from your game altogether. It does become problematic, however, because your spellcasters are going, but I rely on that one and I need. If you don't tell the players before you start playing, hey, by the way, I'm removing all of these spells, and this is the whole list, and suddenly the player goes, oh, I've reached level 7, now I want to be able to learn how to raise 5 dead people that have been dead for a century or more and bring them back to life completely unhindered and unaffected in the age of 20 in their prime. Oh, actually that spell's banned. No, before the game starts, these are the spells that I have banned. This is why I have banned them. Or, before the game, look at the spells that you don't like, figure out how they are tempered within your game, and again, tell the players this information. It's all about sharing. Sharing is caring, as you know. Now, this is a lot of work to go through and kind of remove all of this stuff. What if you just don't wanna, but you don't like how the spells work either? How do you deal with it? Look at your system. If your system isn't balanced, if the role-playing mechanics are just, oh, you can just bring back from someone from the dead. Oh, well, that sucks. On the other hand, if it's, oh, well, in order to bring back someone from the dead, you need to have the tear of a unicorn and a 5,000 gold piece chalice carved from solid platinum. Well, guess what? The king, the queen, the emperor, all of those royal leaders who are in existence, they've bought them all. They're not letting anybody else have them. They don't just have, oh, just in case I get assassinated once or twice, I'll have one or two of those. No, those unicorns are in perpetual fear and terror, being milked for every tear that they have. So you are using the world to actually make sense of it all. Sending communication, messages, all those kinds of things. Perhaps they can be easily intercepted with some spells that you've added in. Bear in mind, we absolutely know that I'm not a vampire, because clearly I'm not melting under the sun that's suddenly come out. Where have you been for the last 6 months? What we know is whenever someone comes up with something, somebody else comes up with a way to break it, or to change it, or to alter it. This has never once deviated, ever in the history of humanity. We always find an alternative. Of course, you could just let them all stay in the game and sit back and watch as stuff just falls apart because, oh, there's a super powerful spell and it just does a thing and breaks everything that you planned. Massive thank you to all of you for watching all the way through to the end. And until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.